Hey, everybody. I am so excited today to be, first of all, with my wife, Kristi Mailloux, and together with Greg and Julie Gorman. And Greg and Julie are the founders of an amazing ministry called Married with a Purpose. But we've come to be friends with Greg and Julie and have gotten to know them on a deeper level, and they're just amazing people. And I'm so excited that they've taken some time out today to be able to share with all of us on today's podcast. So, Greg and Julie, thank you and welcome.
Fantastic. Thanks
Our
for
pleasure.
having us.
What an
We
honor to
love
be
y'all.
here with y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I would love to have our group know a little bit more about your background. How did you give us a little bit of your journey as you got here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. You know, Julie and I have always worked together. We met in the workplace, and way back when we were working for a company called MCI WorldCom. Now, some of y'all aren't old enough to remember what that is, but MCI, for the ones who are old enough, became famous really for the friends and family long distance service for landlines and such some years ago.
Now, wait, what's a landline?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it's not a cell phone, Todd. We'll just leave it at that. And so, yeah, we have worked together really our entire marriage. We had a short stint where we were kind of had to divide and conquer, but for the most part, you know, we've been very fortunate to be able to work together over the years. We've been in several different organizations. We primarily, our career has been in sales and sales management and growing sales teams. We've built multiple businesses north of 10 million a year. And over time, you know, God has just really blessed us. We have a great working relationship. But when it comes to the marriage side of things, Julie and I have been married for 27 years now.
We are. Yeah, officially. I've been claiming like 27 for all last year, and we realized, oh, wait, we're only coming up on our
So we're
27th.
about 16 days from that, right?
16 days from
Well,
27.
congratulations on that.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
But in the early days, you know, our marriage really, really struggled. Julie and I both came from just some pretty crazy backgrounds. And both of us had been previously married, and our spouses were unfaithful. And so those marriages just didn't last. And so throughout that time period, when Julie and I got together, we fell madly in love very quickly. We dated all of 6 months before I convinced her to marry
Highly
me.
recommend that not.
And then what happened?
You know, it's just been a whirlwind relationship from the very beginning, in the best of ways and the worst of ways, but we've steadily plodded forward. And what I love is that in our relationship, God has taken all of those broken areas, given us healing. And I like to say that so often the things that we struggle with or we struggle through, once we get the victory, it always serves as a bridge for others to cross over from death to life. And so whether that's been in slow start businesses, whether that's been in marriage ministry, we've just faithfully continued to do the next right thing. And what we found is after we've gotten through that, because of the authenticity of our journey, because of the lessons that we learned, we found that people were naturally gravitating towards us, wanting to know what it was that we were doing to be so successful. So I just say all of that to say that no matter where you're at in your journey, man, God's got you. He's going to faithfully lead you forward. And that's what we found in our relationship.
I've got two things that I must correct if I can real quick, okay? So first off, the name
That
of the
sounds like a good marriage if you're able to work
absolutely.
through
Well, the
that.
first
Okay.
one's directed at you, my friend. The name of the marriage ministry is Married for a Purpose,
Yes.
not with. So Married for a
Oh, yeah,
Purpose,
you'll find
okay?
somebody different if you go there.
And then the other thing is you said that we always just kept doing the next right thing. I think there was a couple of setbacks there where you definitely did not do the right thing.
No, I was doing the right thing. He just wasn't.
You think it was me? Okay, we're going all the way back to the beginning here. Just
All
kidding.
right. Well, so it's Married for a Purpose. And
Yes,
so
sir.
I appreciate that so much. I have so many questions. First, clearly you guys have a lot of fun in everything you do. And so you've worked out to be a very, very successful marriage. I'd love to hear a little bit about that journey. But then also, how did you pivot over into the ministry and create Married for a Purpose?
Great question. You know, I went through a season where I felt like God was calling me out of the industry that I was in. I didn't know what I was being called into. So I left that industry. It was life and health insurance. We were wildly successful over there. We did really, really well. And then for some time, this is the short period where Julie and I kind of divided and conquered in a sense. I went into a franchise organization and built a franchise in home health care, built that to north of 10 million a year as well, and then was able to sell that business. And in the meantime, I went through an extremely difficult faith crisis because I kind of gave you the high points of those transitions, but there was a massive low in between. We moved from Kentucky to Texas and then to Florida, all within an 11-month period of time. We had 3 kids and a puppy in tow. And so it was very expensive to make all those transitions. And we went 4 years with no check at all. And then almost 7 years before it was anything that would even be close to what anybody would consider making a living.
That's
And so
hard.
during that time period, I feel like honestly, God led us into a wilderness in order to strip us down, and me in particular, because with the success and a lot of other things, we were very, very plugged into our community, and we were highly sought after in our local community and abroad in across the nation in our industry. And I think I was just prideful. And during that season, y'all, I feel like God really stripped me down to anything I could tie my identity to. He pulled away with the exception of him so that my identity would be solely in him. And that began the paving, because when I hit rock bottom and I was at the bottom of myself trying to
Everything was
figure
tested.
everything out,
And everything was tested.
and everything was tested. And, we struggled literally to put food on the table, went from being millionaires to, really struggling to feed the family and such. I had a crossroads experience, and I'll just touch on the high points of it because it's not ultimately pertinent, I think, to what you're trying to drive at. And if you want to dive deeper, you're welcome to. But I made a decision at one point that if God is who he says he is in the Bible, then I really needed to start living as though he was who he says he was. And with that, it really was a choice of faith. And one of the major lessons that I learned during that time period was the difference between hope and faith. Hope is good, and I think that we should all have hope. But faith is belief. I was hoping things would get better, not believing things would get better, right? I think I had talked myself into sort of believing, but there's no such thing. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. You either believe or you don't believe. There's no in between, right? And so with that, as my faith really became firm, I think it affected Julie as well. And as I come out of the backside of that season, I had a bit of a brainstorm that I
You did.
presented to
You
Julie.
did.
So I'd been doing a lot of different studying, and I had been unpacking everything about my faith so that I could undo the programming and learn really from the ground up who Jesus is and what my faith was all about from my own self instead of just passed down knowledge. And during that time period, as I renewed my faith, I told Julie, I was like, a lot of the things and the principles that we've used to build businesses, to build the franchise, to build different organizations over the years and leadership and things of that nature, nobody is talking about those things within the family dynamic in the way that we talk about those things, in the way that we teach them. Because we teach a lot on, and
Very
we
different.
focus a lot on thought and the fact that we become what we think about as just a sliver there. And so as we begin to transition, I told her, I said, I really think we need to take these different principles, we need to pull them down and begin to think about how we have grown as a family, how it healed our marriage, how it shaped our parenting, how it's helped us to fight for unity above all else within our relationship, and begin to pass some of those lessons on. And then as we did, things just begin to grow like crazy. Now, I took a lot of time to explain that, so I'd love for you to
Yeah,
expound
no,
anything.
I think it was a Gideon season of life. I like to refer to it as the Gideon season of life, where God was reducing us down to the absolute ridiculous so that when he gave us the victory, there wouldn't be any question who got the glory in it. And so just like Gideon had too many men, we had too many things going for us that when he called us to minister specifically to marriage and family, the promise and the calling was to restore his intent, that God was going to begin a movement to restore his intent for marriage and family. And I remember having an argument with God. I'm like, why couldn't you call us to that when we were making X amount of dollars, you know?
Well, and I was arguing going like, dude, like seriously, is there not enough marriage ministers? Is there not enough marriage books out there? You want us to do this? Are you kidding? Anyway.
But as I had that argument, I remember so explicitly, like just what I felt like the Holy Spirit was prompting in my heart is because if I would have allowed you to do it then, you would have thought it was about you. And so just like he had approached Gideon, he was like, "You've got too many men. If I give you the victory now, you're going to think that Israel did it."
Yeah.
And so in that, as we pivoted, we knew directly what God was calling us to. It was out of all of the brokenness and yet all the things that helped to restore us. And so that's where the marriage ministry ended up kind of taking the forefront
Yeah.
over the
Yeah.
business.
Now, somewhere in that process, I don't remember exactly where, but you had been putting out videos on purpose, on finding purpose in life. And you had a number of just wonderful videos that Kristi and I had listened to. And then we reached out and had connected together kind of early in that journey and just kind of hit it off as a friendship. And maybe you can talk a little bit about the Married for a Purpose and kind of, I think it was early on, you were coaching alone, I think, at that time. Is that right? You were just doing the marriage ministry, just the two of you. Is that right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
what happened is we published several books, they did well. We were solicited by publishers to write the manuscripts, so they paid us to write them, and then from there, we had been coaching individuals for several years in finding purpose and really building a life plan. We used the Patterson Life Plan back then, and then, I remember at one point, we had started getting a lot of requests to work with couples, and so we were doing more and more couples, and it all of a sudden the pendulum kind of swang the other direction and we were doing more couples than we were individuals. And so we I remember I was deer hunting and I was coming out of the field and Julie called me and she's like, we have our own process that we've developed for coaching couples. And I'm like, okay, bounce it off of me, and let's see how it works. So she sent me some stuff. One thing led to another, and we put together what we call a marriage reboot. Marriage reboot is a 2-day one-on-one, one coach couple with a couple who's wanting to go from good to great, or maybe they're in deep kimchi and really need deep help. In your case, you guys were what we would call a good to great couple. I'm sure you're glad to hear that.
Yeah, yeah,
We're great. We're grateful.
yeah,
Yeah. No, but you really, really are and still are, only you classify more in just the great to great at this point. But yeah, and so we crossed paths and I remember well sitting with you all for a couple of days
Mm.
here and coaching y'all through the marriage reboot and things kind of have begun to
Yeah,
multiply
so
since then. So now
since that time, whereas we were primarily the coaches, we're doing that marriage reboot one-on-one with great leaders like yourself. So we had really quality people that were coming to our home that we were seeing, man, these guys are great, but they're even getting even more great breakthrough. Would love for you guys to share maybe your experience even.
yeah,
But at one point, we got to the point where we couldn't keep up with the demand. We had more clients than we could keep up with. And that's where the business really began to take a shift and we began to certify other couples to facilitate the marriage reboot. So fast forward to today, in the last 5 years, y'all, since we've did your reboot, in the last 5 years, we've grown to 300 different, as in your model, you would say
praise God.
franchises, but
Yeah,
300 different
yeah,
couples. We are now represented in 37 states, 7 countries, and
wow,
all of that grew organically. One couple experiencing it, sharing with another. In this last year, we did start doing some different ads and marketing in that way,
but
but
we didn't for the first four.
but we didn't,
yeah,
and it's really what I love that God has created. It is 300 kingdom-minded, abundant-minded believers who are on a singular mission to restore God's intent for
yeah,
marriage and family. And so as a foundation, as an organization, our belief is that as we heal a marriage, God's original, it was the very first institution that God put in place was a husband-wife combo. And as we restore that relationship, we begin to restore and heal the family unit. And as we do that, we begin to influence and impact our churches, which then impacts our communities. And we believe the ripple effect, if we want our culture, if we want our country transformed, it all stems from the family unit. So
yeah.
we're really
Yep,
excited.
and God's original purpose and design. Yeah, and I remember how anointed it was to actually sit together, and it was a new dawning to realize that each marriage God has put together married for a purpose. So the unique DNA of each individual together combined in a marriage is for a divine purpose. And so when you start to view your own marriage through God's eyes, or your spouse through God's eyes, or vice versa, we enjoyed it greatly. So much so that not only have we worked together with you guys and love you guys, but Kristi and I got certified as coaches to be able to do that. So we're proud to say we're one of the 300 that loved it, loved the program so much. I'd love to hear your perspective. Has it made me any better, or I'm still a work in progress?
We are both a work in
Yeah,
progress.
okay.
What I love most about it is that we are two strong-willed people. We both led different companies. And when you're bringing together two strong-willed people for a greater marriage, it helped build our purpose for a future vision in the remainder of our life together, for our family, for our finances, our careers, what's most important to us. And I loved it because of that. It also helped with our communication style. With having two strong-willed people, you start to develop habits, some of them unhealthy in your communication. And we were able to work through how that perspective changes when you look at it from the other people's perspective or your spouse's perspective, which I really appreciated. I'm curious to know from your perspective, when you're helping other couples, are there typical recommendations or
Common themes
that
maybe
you find in
that
most marriages that you could just share, sort of if you had to give advice from your perspective on what you see, the recommendations you give the most, what would those look like?
Well, I'll lead out, but I'd love for you to just share kind of the foundation of everything that we do. There's a couple thoughts that come to mind to me. If you want something different, you're going to have to do something different. And when you can't change how you feel, you got to change the way you think. What our process does that's very unique to other marriage ministries or missions that are focused on the family is we don't tell people what to think. We actually train them how to think for a better result. And so as we work with couples, rather than trying to focus on all the issues, source the issues, fix the issues, find out whose fault the issues are, which a lot of times is the typical approach in a counseling therapy. Not that those things are bad. Sometimes you have to go down the rabbit hole.
100%.
But the emphasis of what our mission does that is singularly different than anything else that I've ever found is that fact that when a couple comes to us, rather than trying to fix the issue, source the issue, find out whose fault the issue is, we simply get agreement around that issue. So we would say, "Are you tired of this, husband?" And he's like, "Yep, I don't want that no more." "Wife, are you sick and tired of it?" And they're like, "Yep, I don't want that anymore." All right, so if this is what we don't want, and we agree on that, let's flip it on its ear. And instead of talking about all these things that we can't do anything about to change, let's talk about what it is that we do want. And that's where we take that holistic approach, hit all 8 areas of every marriage relationship of what it is that they actually want. And we find that they begin to build on common ground, united around that purpose.
Awesome.
I would say you love that is pillars that hold everything that we do together. I want to talk just a little bit about what really sets our approach aside from a lot of others that we've seen. And when I say this, I don't mean to say that everybody else is doing it wrong. I'm just telling you what it is that we do that's very different than what other modalities and such that we bumped into in the marketplace. The bottom line is that every single thought leader throughout time has agreed on one particular principle. All of them. Doesn't matter if they're Baptist or Buddhist or anywhere in between. They've all agreed. They've disagreed on a whole bunch of things. They've gone to war on some of them. But one thing they've all agreed on unanimously. And it seems to me that if all thought leaders from the past or present agree on a central purpose, that we ought to pay attention to it. That one singular thing that they all agree on is this: we become what we think about. King Solomon said, "As we think in our heart, so we become."
Right.
So I think that if that's true, then we ought to be thinking about what we're thinking about and discerning whether our thoughts are leading us to where we want to go or leading us where we don't want to go. And the truth is that most of us are programmed by well-intended people to problem solve, fix the issue, fix the problem. And all of the focus goes on the problem. Well, there's another analogy that we can use that backs this up. Again, what you feed grows and what you starve dies. Buy 2 tomato plants, put one in the sun, fertilize it, make sure it's got plenty of water. I do this all the time. I use tomato plants instead of dogs. I used to say dogs, but
Yeah.
I guess that could be offensive or something. But anyway, put another one in a dark room. Don't give it any water. Don't give it any fertilizer. It's going to die. What you feed grows and what you starve dies. And the same thing is true in our mindset as well. And I believe, y'all, we believe and our ministry and what it is that we do, learn how to actually leverage that, not just as head knowledge, but begin to live from that and monitor our thoughts. Take, for instance, in our marriage relationship, instead of calling out every way that I fall short or that Julie falls short, instead of doing that, we hyper focus on what one another's doing right and we speak that life over one another. We continue to urge and encourage one another. We learn, we studied one another. We literally study one another to learn our communication style so that we don't trigger one another, so that we're patient with one another and we listen. And it's not that difficult. It just takes a little bit of humility, number one, a little bit of focus and monitoring what it is that I'm feeding. Because the truth is that if I'm looking to figure out how I'm getting the short end of the stick and Julie just isn't measuring up, I promise you I can find all the evidence in the world to back that up. And likewise, she can find it on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And the
rather than
natural process, our natural tendency is just to do the otherwise, right? To come and notice what's wrong and criticize. And I was just doing it yesterday.
I'm sure I was just doing it yesterday too.
And I did let him know, but I love you. I love your phrase, Greg, that you use, and correct me if I'm saying it out of order, but hear the best, see the best, believe the best. It really helps if you look at it from that perspective, it helps you always give the other person the benefit of the doubt because you really don't know what perspective they're coming from. You're not in their head. You don't know what their true thought process is. But if you believe they are a good person and they truly want to do good, then we'll give them a chance and just let things go if it's not that important because they really don't have negative intentions in mind because people are really good
And
people.
it
And my
is,
husband's a good person and a good man.
Right.
hold on, everyone. I just want to take this moment. No,
It's recorded, Todd. It was recorded.
what is also so great is that when it strengthens the bond between Kristi and I've noticed that kind of thing spills over with our children, spills over with relationships that people we're working with, when we're always kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt and thinking the best about them. When there's strength here in this relationship, it spills over into all of our other relationships. And so it really is an incredible God principle that's been gifted to us.
It is, and it takes practice.
It does take
Yes,
practice.
and you get
Yeah.
better at it over time. No couple's perfect out of the gate. It takes practice over time.
Well, that reminds me, one of the things that Julie and I believe and that we often talk about is that the truest reflection of our spiritual condition, our heart's
Ooh,
condition,
come on.
is revealed within the four walls of our home.
Yep.
So often we look for great opportunities in the world to go and make massive impact, but there is no single place that will make any more impact and probably no more overlooked place where we have the opportunity to really live out our Christianity than inside the four walls of our own home. And that to me holds me at a very high bar in the area where it actually matters the most in
Yep.
my life because my bank account's not going to matter. At the end of the day, it's not. It's going to be the legacy. It's going to be what I was able to do to sow into her more than any other place on this earth. My kids, yes, absolutely. But my wife, most of all, is the priority. And when I work again to honor her, then what happens is my kids see that and it makes an impact on their life. Other people see that. It makes an impact on their lives, right? And they know that whatever else we're doing is coming out of congruency. It's authentic. It's not we're one way, one place, and another way, another place, right? And so we take it seriously. But, you asked a question earlier and I never really addressed that. So I want to quickly come back to that if I can. You said, what is kind of some common themes, by the way, that we tend to run into? We've coached thousands of couples at this point. And interestingly, we have noticed that there are three primaries that show up really consistently in marriage. Now, I'm going to share these with y'all because if you're struggling in these areas, I just want you to know you're not a weirdo or that you're hopeless or
Yeah.
that you're just screwed in your marriage. That's not the case at all. These things happen every single couple that we've ever coached. Number one would be communication, and communication issues happen because they made them male and female, right? But they happens outside of that as well. We have miscommunications and difficulties in communication inside of business relations and so on and so forth. So it's not unique, but there is some uniqueness in the dynamic. And I think sometimes that's just simply because of the comfort level we take. We sometimes respond or reply or say things to our spouse that we would never say to another human being.
Yeah.
We don't give them the consideration that we would give to someone else who maybe was even a stranger, right? And so we'll start there and just say that communication is probably number one. The other two are probably tied. But if the couple has children, then there's differences in their approach to parenting, whether they're biological, whether it's a blended family or otherwise, adopted, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, again, there are just simply differences in perspectives in the way that we approach parenting. It's something that most of us take very seriously. And so it's a highly emotionally charged area in most marriages. And so we run into that consistently. And then the final one, you're probably expecting that I'm going to say money, but I'm not. Yes, we run into some people that bicker about their money and their finances and such, but I'll tell you more than that, way more than that. When we get in an environment that our coaches are trained to create, which is conducive to people actually sharing what's going on, it's differences and in their intimacy and what their expectations. Now, when I say intimacy, I mean in the bedroom, of course, but I also mean intimacy outside of the bedroom. And it may not be as one sided as what you might think in the real world these days, honestly. But those are the three areas that we run into more commonly. And so, again, if anybody that's watching this or listening in, if you're struggling in some of these areas, you've hit some speed bumps, welcome to the party. You know what I mean? Because it comes with it. But there are ways to help overcome that and kind of knock the rough edges off.
That I love too about your program is it just doesn't end with a reboot. You have regular, I don't want to say training, but areas of opportunity to continue to grow together with regular ongoing sort of webinars to help couples come together and continue to build their marriage even after a reboot. So I love that. And I thought of that when you mentioned parenting, because I know we all go through tough times with parenting, even of adult children, that it's interesting to consider both perspectives from where each family member is coming from. And that's really helpful in that. Well, where can people learn more about you, and what's the first way to get started, Greg and Julie? I'd love to hear a little bit more so we know if people want to, especially some of our friends who are more empty nesters nowadays, and they may have built separate careers and want to bring their future life together a little bit more. We often coach our friends that mention, we would love to build our future vision together. And we recommend Greg and Julie, your course, Married for a Purpose, for their coaching program for a reboot because it helped us so much. So how do people learn more about the program? It's just, it doesn't take much to learn more about a program. So we want to encourage all of our friends who might be listening today to at least learn more about the program.
So Julie will respond to that, but I wanted to throw something else in here just really, really quickly, and that is simply empty nesting is, again, just statistically, just FYI, there are 4 times more divorces after age 50 than there are all other age brackets combined.
Quadrupled.
Wow.
Yeah.
No.
It's again, if you're in that phase of life and you're struggling, there are a lot of different dynamics that play into what leads up to this, but it is repairable if you want. You've worked your whole lives to get to this place where life should begin to be a little bit different and better because of what you've built together and all the years that you put up with each other's stuff. You know what I mean? So it's worth taking an investment and doing a deep dive to see if there's something there to be, cultivated back. It's very, very common. It's a difficult season of life. There's lots of transitions, and transitions in life are always the difficult seasons of life, right? Even if they're good transitions, they're transitions and things are a little bit unstable. And so I just wanted to throw in there that it's very common also that people tend to need a little bit of help along the way in that season of life. Now, we're going to hear more and learn more about it.
Yeah, so I think the easiest way is to go to our website. It's marriedforapurpose.com, and the 4 is the FOR. So marriedforapurpose.com. you can go under, there's a drop down menu for Marriage Reboot. Click on that, fill out the form. You'll get to talk to either me or Greg directly. We'll make sure that if we're not the ones who facilitate your reboot, as we're not doing a lot of them anymore, if you request us, we'll be happy to do that. But otherwise, we've got 37 states covered, can make it pretty easy for you to get your reboot done. I will say this. Statistically, to this point, after 2 decades of doing it, we have a 99.7% success rate with the couples that we work with.
That's
And even
incredible.
as we franchised out, we have 300 couples now that are doing this. That statistic has remained. So what we're doing works because it comes from a completely different energy. It builds on common ground. I'm just going to speak to the guys real quick because sometimes it's the guys that are a little reluctant. They're like, oh my gosh, hit me in the head with a 2x4, then have to go to a retreat, kind of setting. But this is a 2-day one-on-one exclusive. You're pampered, you're taken care of, favorite foods, favorite beverages, one-on-one time. But the energy of it isn't how you're not measuring up or how you're failing. The emphasis is to build on common ground, to learn how to discover one another, to find what you love, not all the things that are lacking, how to serve one another instead of expecting to be served. And really, by the time you walk out in all 8 domains of your marriage relationship, whether it's communication, intimacy, your parenting, your faith, your finances, all the way down to your lifestyle rhythm, you're going to walk out with a 2 to 5 year vision of where it is that you're heading. Not that you guys want independently of one another, but that you collectively had agreed on that you both desire. And that's where the power comes in because one will put 1,000 to flight, two 10,000. What you're going to see is we put the practicality to the scriptures we all love. We know a house divided won't stand. Okay, well, how do you live that out? And we know one can put 1,000 to flight, two 10,000. Okay, well, how? How do you do that? This provides the practicality of the way to move forward on common ground, united together, and it's a lot of laughter and joy and discovery, and you learn what to say yes to, what you need to say no to. So go to marriedforapurpose.com, fill out the form, let us know that you heard about us here. So that way we're the ones who take the phone call and we'll get to talk with you directly.
Yeah. Oh,
Well, our marriage and our family have been blessed by the program, and we're extremely appreciative, and we appreciate our ongoing relationship and fun we have together.
well, and frankly, one of the things I noticed 5 years ago was how amazingly anointed your program is, that it's just a gift from God. And as evidence of that, 7.8% success rate, you just cannot possibly hit those numbers without being blessed and without having a very, very godly program. And so it has really enriched our lives. It was amazing to see this. Couples have asked us too. Well, sort of a little bit of that apprehension. Well, what happens? Well, it's amazing to see how miraculous it is when you both come out and have a combined purpose together. No
Oh,
matter
yeah.
how different you are or how different your interests are, there's something very, very special about reconnecting and having that divine purpose together again. So we have really loved it. In fact, I just realized I've been using Greg. I should not have been able to even make that mistake early on. Marriedforapurpose.com. I've got your Yeti right here. So
It's all good, man. It happens all the time. It
yeah.
does, yeah.
Hey, Greg and Julie, we love you guys so much. And thank you so much for what you've done in our lives and in our marriage and for so many of the thousands and thousands of marriages that your ministry has touched and more to come.
Well, we love you guys too, and we appreciate getting to spend the time with you. Thank you.
Thank you.